How's it going? How's it going, people? Mixed bag this evening, methinks. How are we all doing? You's alright? So, what are we talking about? Talk about a few things. We'll take a wee look at some Globe Drivel that came up in my feed. 20 questions the flat earthers can't answer. Whatever a flat earther is. We'll have a look at the nonsense anyway. A couple other bits and bobs. Morality. I was going to talk a wee bit about that. Morality, I mean, there's I think there's so many things people miss. You know, people talk about new world orders and agendas, and they miss some of the aspects that for me are concerning. So when we're talking about morality, you know, nobody has established an objective morality, but people think that they've got an objective morality because they're part of a society. They don't recognise that they're attached to a society, and that society formulates and plays out norms of what's acceptable, blah blah blah. Now, our judicial system, you know, your education system, universities, they're all swearing on Bibles. Now, you know, in order for them to impose some sort of objective morality, they have to get people to accept that there is a transcendental being or entity that we get morality from, and they try and superimpose that as a law or a rule. Now, that's just a ruse for me to keep the majority of people in line, and it also breeds corruption, because once people have established these things, they can start to put, you know, they form alliances and allegiances with each other, and that supposed objective morality goes right out the window. As long as I've got the majority of people, you know, formulated under an umbrella of some, you know, imagined objective morality, then they can get away with pretty much anything. And for me, I think it's pretty dangerous, because it then gives free rein to people to start running about superimposing and trying to impose on everybody else that they have the keys to what objective morality is. Now, I'm a realist, you know, I look at morality and I question what morality actually is, and I can only go by what I am. Now, I'm not saying that subjective morality should be the rule of thumb as a society. What people are missing is that we live as societies, we live as congregations. So this had to be formulated, and for me it's formulated through fear. Let me just get a wee clip up here that I had. Wait a wee minute. Bear with me 2 seconds. Right. I'm just going to use this as a wee reference, just to kind of highlight what I'm talking about. Because a lot of this supposed objective morality for me is a result of fear, and people will fight for, you know, the maintaining the idea of an objective morality because they're in fear, because they think that everybody's a pillager, a raper, a murderer, a thief, whatever. Now, a lot of these behaviours come through a lack. They come through deprivation, because we have an imbalance of this structure that we're all aligned to and a part of right now. That is where a lot of these attributes and behaviours stem from, right? So I'm going to play this wee clip and I'll highlight exactly what I'm talking about, so just bear with me. I know I've not gave any introductions or anything like that this evening, but I don't feel the need that there is, because I'm focusing on a few other bits and bobs. Anybody that's new, you know, if you want a wee overview, check out one of the previous uploads. you'll get an overview of who I am. Right, let's hear it. Let's have a wee listen to this. Commentary, educational purposes, and all that fucking drivel, whatever. This is no mine and all that.
Let's leave aside Christianity and historical examples for a second. All night you guys have been grappling with issues like morality and, you know, what is right, what is wrong, and meaning. But my question is simply, why are you so afraid of subjective moral reasoning? I mean, do you think that we're all just going to start raping and pillaging just because we don't have a book to tell us what to do? I mean, are you afraid?
Well, the thing about that statement is that the majority of the structure operates from that book, but we still have raping and pillaging and warmongering and blah 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 from the very same politicians and people who are sworn into offices under the guise of this book. Right? So it's just all gobbledygook and nonsense.
Afraid of that? Like, I'm not, because that's not going to happen. And that, yeah, Nazis were bad, but there were Christian Nazis and there were atheist Nazis. So I don't see, what are you so afraid of?
Do you lock your door at night?
Yeah. Sure.
Now on the surface, you know, again, everybody's laughing as if a valid point has been made. And it is a valid point. Under the structure that we live right now, we live in lack. You know, resources are not shared evenly. We have a fiat currency system. We have, you know, monopolies who are taking interest in taxing people for their sweat, blood and tears and their time. You know, and causing an imbalance because they're taking more for themselves, no sharing things equally, and it's causing depravity. You know, you can see that. You can see that there's extreme wealth and extreme poverty. Now, what's that about? If they were really operating under an objective morality as they profess, then we wouldn't have any of that stuff going on in the world, but we do. So when he's making that point back to him there, oh, do you lock your door at night? Of course, because under the circumstances we're in right now, under the circumstances that we don't live as free sovereigns with our own right to protect our own private property and our own being through, you know, the use of guns or whatever, then of course people are going to clamber to have protection from some idea or concept that they think gives them protection. Now, they're under that ruse right now, but that's not going to stop somebody from breaking into their house at night, robbing them, murdering them, raping them. That happens. So where is this objective moral imprint taking hold? Because, you know, you've got a police force, you've got a military, you've got a blah, blah, blah. These people show up after the events. So what kind of message is actually being spread here? What's being spread here is that you have to give up your own sovereignty. You have to align with a world order or a societal order under the guise of some biblical teaching that's supposed to transcend us, and this is where everybody gets their moral compass from.
You know, I hear what you're saying. Sounds very cavalier, though. My goodness. If we weren't afraid of all of this, we would not be in a national debt.
Well, why are we afraid of all this, Ravi? This is the questions that these people don't seem to, you know, ponder. It's the result of the structure that we have in place right now, again, that's under the moral code of a Bible. But, you know, we're still in the same situation. It's all based in fear.
China is secular.
Sorry?
China is secular.
Sorry?
China is secular.
That's right. What does that
I
mean?
mean, they're not raping and pillaging, and neither are we.
Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Have you read what happened during the Red Guards Rebellion? Have you read what happened during the Boxer Rebellion? Do you know who has killed more people in the 20th century than China and Russia? 60 million apiece?
Human beings with silly ideas in their brain. Human beings that have perpetuated and created a hierarchical structure and allowed representatives of their individuality to get into public arenas and given power, which they then, you know, corrupts them. When are people going to realise that handing over your authority and your power to stature and hierarchy is the fucking problem here?
it makes the Holocaust seem tame. The 20th century became the bloodiest century in history. And the reason it became the bloodiest century in history, I can see, is you could just see the weapons of our warfare were piling up, and there was no guiding principle to take us anywhere. Now,
but there is a guiding principle, apparently, and it's still mounting up. There's still atrocities happening left, right and centre. There's, people in poverty all over the pond. So, what's really going on here? Because trying to impose a order and a morality that transcends just doesn't seem to be working, as far as I can tell. Now, if I remove humans from the equations and I go to the animal kingdom, and I look at what happens in the animal kingdom, is there morality? When an animal's in need, does it think through a moral compass? Or does it act instinctively and impulsively? Another scenario, people talk about morality, blah, blah, blah. Say you've got you, I'll talk to you as an individual, and you've got your 3 kids. And there's a huge famine going on, there's a lack of food anywhere. And you spot another man and his 3 kids with enough food to feed him and his 3 kids. And he leaves it lying, or it's unprotected, or he's unprotected. And you're bigger than him, but you're starving and so is your kids. What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you confront that man and you want that food off him, and that man will fight to the death, and you actually kill that man and he's left 3 children? What are you going to do then? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Again, I'm only offering questions here to the absurdity of the psychology of human beings right now and the hypocrisy that I see going on. So I'm postulating these questions to try and rattle you, to make you think about what's actually happening here.
in a perfect world, yes, we don't need to be afraid. Have you seen what happens in our courts of law, where people supposedly love each other, and all that comes about in hate and vitriol?
It's not just the people that are taking each other to court. What about the judges and all the components of that? They're all operating under the guise of this book. This is their code. This is what transcends everybody, and they're all supposed to be following these teachings. But do they? Does it matter? They don't really buy into it. They don't really believe it. What they care about is self-preservation.
And damage? I don't think the question is fairly stated as what are you afraid of. I'm just saying it is basically unlivable. I didn't conclude that. An atheist like Jean-Paul Sartre concluded it. We killed more people in the 20th century than the previous 19 put together.
It's unlivable when you're trying to corral everybody under one unified structure of living, a society, a culture. What's happened for me is that, subjective moral reasoning, given the freedom, are taken away from the situation we're in right now, is it really a bad thing? Because I'll identify what I am, I'll recognise what I am, and I'll align with those that are of the same ilk. Other people who have a different code or a different way of life will align with other people, and you formulate clans or tribes or whatever, right? But again, it still comes down to it when the chips are on the table. If there's a necessity, where does all this morality come into play? Going back to the scenario that I says to you, you and your 3 kids, starving. There's a source of food, enough to feed you and your 3 kids, that some other guy and his 3 kids have found first. Is your morality going to be there? So there's questions to be asked about that.
And your question is, what are we afraid of? The fact of the matter is, if morality is purely subjective, then you have absolutely nothing from stopping anybody for being a subjective moralist to choose to just zing one through your forehead and say, that's my answer.
But that's, again, he's saying these in idealistic terms, because that's the way it is. But we still have this structure that's based on something that's supposed to transcend us, but that behaviour still exists. So the question I'm asking is it useful to us to organise into societies and have these sorts of structures in place? Or should we just be free expressions of what we actually are, walking our own path, experiencing life by ourselves without getting stopped in our tracks by, rules, regulations, ideas, concepts, fake knowledge? Again, I hark back to things like the Bible, and I see a bit of profoundness in those if I play with the idea of, eat from the tree of life, know the tree of knowledge. Well, it depends what you mean by knowledge. Eating from the tree of life for me is being exactly that, an experiencer of your own experience, learning and having wisdom through practical interaction with your reality and other human beings. Lessons learned, wisdom acquired, knowledge of, history, this guy said so, blah, 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 the way the education system, and that's a fault, that's not an experience. That's a human being taking useless information that's of no use to them whatsoever and trying to incorporate that into their being and then running about acting like they have knowledge. But they don't. Knowledge is your experience. That's the only true knowledge you will ever have. Forget where I was going with that, but I'm sure I'll come back to it.
How do you stop that? Obviously, you don't believe that's the way it should be. Neither do I. So it's not a case of
why. I'm going to ask the questions again. Why, Ravi? Because your stance, as far as I can see, is based in fear. That it will end up like that, but it will end up like that if we continue to have a structure where we allow human beings to access realms of power and go unchecked. If you're going to have a societal structure, you have to have stringent measures in place to make sure these people are representing the objective, fulfilling the role they're supposed to, maintaining the infrastructure that the human beings require, who are actively participating and agreeing to take part in a society. But who has the right to organise that? How did we end up in this? What happened to the clans and the tribes?
What am I afraid of? It's a case of the fact that if you're willing to say to me that moral reasoning can be purely subjective, I just say to you, look out, you ain't seen nothing yet if everybody believed what you did. Do you know?
But it is, because the Bibles and these religious teachings are just concepts. Nobody has shown me that they are objectively true. People can say to me, but you've got a sense of right and wrong, but that's me. I can identify subjectively what I see as right and wrong, good or evil. But to another man, they could have a totally different view of that. So who's right? You ain't seen nothing yet. Again, I have to hark back to this. We have a structure that's meant to be under the guise of a teaching that transcends all of us, that gives us some sort of moral compass or grounds to stand upon, to claim we are morally, correct. Where does that apply to the rest of nature? The rest of nature acts impulsively through necessity. But we've become detached for that. Again, we can talk about what I mean by nature. I'm just using it loosely here.
Funny, interesting. When I was in the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, Stalin eliminated 15 million of his own people. 15 million of his own people. And at the center for geopolitical strategy, they didn't want to even name his name and so on. His daughter Svetlana made the comment, it is quoted both by Malcolm Muggeridge in his writings and by historian Paul Johnson in Modern Times. Svetlana was standing by the bedside of her father before he died. She said the last thing he did was clench his fist toward the heavens one more time.
So for all his atrocities, again, for me, somebody that Ravi overlooks, what allowed them the capabilities to achieve what they achieved? What allows any dictator, fascist, the capabilities to achieve what they achieve? The individuals subscribe to a society, a hierarchy, a stature-based structure, right? That's no formulated properly, that doesn't have stringent measures in place to make sure corruption like that doesn't take hold. So it's the blueprint of the game that everybody's involved in that allows these things to happen. Somebody like Stalin, take the story for what it is, may have started out as somebody totally different, but the power, the positions he was in may have got to him that transformed him into something else. So you have to look at what facilitates and nurtures certain behaviours. And for me, it's exactly that. Who are these people? Everybody talks about New World Order, this, that, and blah, blah. It's here. They're all acting under the guise of, objective moral reasoning and principles and ethics and all that. But their display, their walk is something totally different. And everybody keeps clambering for more, missing the part that facilitates and allows that individual or group of human beings to get to that point of oppressing, brutalising their fellow man. So what we are now, the very same situation. We're all supposed to adhere to a certain code, but that only applies to us and no those in the positions because they can act differently. What do I have to protect somebody like them coming with their guns that want to push whatever narrative they want to push onto me? I've got fucking nothing. Human beings have allowed their sovereignty, their individuality, their subjective moral reasoning and principles to be usurped by a overseer. And again, the aspects of this, I'm sick of these people that go on their wee religious bandwagons and start spouting that they have objectivity in regards to morality, how people should behave, what's expected of them, what's good, what's bad, blah, blah, blah. Seen it recently as I spoke about the whole transgendery type thing. Where are these people getting their grounds? They're just taking it for granted that their faith and belief in a particular doctrine is the objective truth. And then they stand all proud and start casting judgment on everybody else because they're convinced that their wee delusion is correct. It's just not well thought out at all. It's not the actions or the minds of critical thinking people who are considering what's actually going on. Because I'll make the statement, you don't have the grounds. You have a faith in a book. Again, I identify myself through my reflection, what I think's good, bad, immoral, unjust, blah, 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 through my experience. And then I make that choice not to impose that onto anybody else. Is it that scary to be a sovereign individual being? To formulate an own understanding of yourself and to align with other people who you see as of the same ilk? Is that inherently a bad thing? It's a bad thing when a group of you get together and start trying to impose it onto everybody else and then start calling it a society and then offer up your moral code. It all harps back to everything that I've ever said about this. These people don't even know what they're part of here. They don't know where they are. They don't know how they came to be or why they came to be or anything. And right now in this day and age, everybody's operating through fear and anxiety, impulsive behaviour. And they're clambering over each other to have a superimposed, overseeing authority to make everything alright because they're so terrified of taking responsibility for themselves.
His head back on the pillow and he was gone. This is his daughter raising the question, whatever got into my father to have that kind of hatred and hostility? And when 15 million were killed of his own people, it is interesting that the faculty members and the general.
What got into your father is again the structure that allowed and facilitated the nurturing of the behaviours that he displayed. So change the structure. Change what facilitated and allowed these behaviours to become prominent. If you want to come in and speak to me about any of this, you know, always good to have other people's thoughts on the matter. But the whole question of morality is a complex layering that's not just an easy feat to find what's right, what's good, whatever. You know, there's so much to consider and have a look at. Again, you know, look at the rest of nature. Does that have a moral code? No, it doesn't. Who would want us to have this moral code imposed? But yet these people that impose this supposed moral code don't behave and adhere to that moral code. It's pretty bizarre. I know they gave a structure level, Fred, but why was the necessity there? It would be there through a lack, through stress, through anxiety, fear, through need, through lack. If I look back at some of what I can get from previous times gone by, architecture, teachings like the quadrivium and the trivium, they would have you believe that people were cavemen, knuckle-dragging, barbarians. That's the image that was given to us. Then, by selling you that narrative and getting you to believe that that's your inherent nature, that's the way man is, they can start imposing these, worldly codes to bring everybody under this banner of behaviour. Well, the ones who are imposing it are displaying all the other behaviours. They're not abiding by the code, but you are. So when I see things like the trivium, quadrivium, I think to myself, were these people really knuckle-dragging barbarians? Or were they intellectually savvy? Rational, sane, balanced individuals who didn't need a governance, didn't need a superimposed moral code and law structure. They were logical, they were discerning, rational, balanced people, from what I can tell. You don't formulate things like the trivium, the quadrivium, see the architectures that was there by being a knuckle-dragging fucking caveman barbarian. That's just a nonsense image they're portrayed in your mind. Then through that imposed, supposed transcendent moral code, you've got a bunch of fucking self-righteous mongs running about the place, chastising and judging anybody that dare be different from them. While at the same time, their transcendental fucking code of book tells them not to do that. Very, very strange, bizarre behaviours going on in the psyche of man. So, in a scenario, in a situation of mad chaos and disorder and perpetual war and fucking, the whole shebang, if that was really the case, you could maybe see a necessity for bringing us under a transcendental code, transcendence. But was that the case? Or is that only the case now because of the structure? What's facilitated and allowed these psychological traits and behaviours to come to the fruition, come to the front? So are these clowns that run about thinking they've got a moral code that transcends us? For me, I see them actually perpetuating and adding to a dictator, fascist structure, a new world order. While at the same time they think they're all holy and spiritual and this imagined overseer is going to welcome them with open arms, while they display some of the most despicable, hate-filled bile aspects that I've ever fucking seen. Spiritual realm may well be 100%. Again, I see people misrepresenting me. I don't deny you know, an aspect of creation here, intelligence maybe behind this. What I deny is human beings and their desperate attempts to try and tell me that they know what that is. This thing that has to be outside of space, time, matter, you know, the whole shebang, it has to be. It's got to be the prime mover, the uncaused cause. It's no here, it's no in this. But they've got these books that they identify with, these stories, these narratives, and then they try and fucking spew it to everybody that they've got a grasp on what that actually is. They fucking don't. No, I agree, Ute. You know, I see design in the very structure of our reality. I don't deny that. Again, what I deny is people's interpretations about what that is, that prime mover, what it wants, what its intentions were. That's where I have a serious problem. And the majority of these people are not intellectually honest enough to admit that they just go with a particular story and they have faith in that story. They'll try and assert to you and I that they have the objective answers, and they fucking don't have them. What they believe in and their behaviours and what they spout is hypocritical and contradictory to the very thing they profess to know about. And it is, Steve HV, well, this is the point I'm trying to make, religions. But look at the whole of society, it's structured on that moral coding. You go to court, you put your hand on a Bible, you swear to that Bible. You go to university and you get a doctorate, or you pass, or you know, thing with you. It's all done under a Bible. It's all done under swearing oaths to a concept of something that transcends us all. And people just don't realise that. And what I'm asking is that beneficial to us? Or is it more beneficial to accept that you're an individual and not everybody's the same as you? Therefore, you can't impose a moral code. All you can do is have the right to be you, and defend yours. And that's been taken from us as far as I can see. They've done that here with gun laws. They're trying it everywhere. Why? Because then an individual doesn't have his sovereign right to protect his or hers and theirs. So before anybody goes jumping in, I go by my own morals based on my reflections and my experiences of what was detrimental to me, what was hurtful to me because of my essence and what I actually am. But again, I could never try and superimpose that onto the rest of the masses because it's just not right. There's so many variations and complexities of different psychological states and behaviours. And a lot of the behaviours that we see right now are a result of a formulated construct that we call society. So why did we end up like that? You get people saying, oh, we had to because it was beneficial to us. Maybe up until a point. Maybe up until a point. It's beneficial for a community to maybe help each other out to get shit done. But as soon as you start placing a structure in there to put representatives and middlemen in, and you're not paying attention to that, it's going to get corrupted. They're going to start using that to their benefit. And that's exactly what's happened. So in my book, I live and let live. I mind my own business. You mind your own business. Whatever you get up to in your subjective, wants and desires, that's up to you. As soon as it starts to become an aspect of imposing that against another's will, that's what we call criminality. That's what criminality originally would have been about. The golden rule. So I'm an advocate for that, right? Especially when it comes to innocents like children. I've no Mr. Mojo. I try not to get swayed too much by literature and other people's understandings. I was speaking to Marty about this last night. I think if an individual's on a path and a pursuit and they're using their own power of reasoning and they're contemplating, you will end up at a lot of avenues that some of these people who have wrote books or, literatures, and it's good to have that, because then you can see, okay, you're not the only one who's formulated a path to that type of understanding. But, the opposite's happening now. New people just regurgitate, Sartre and Kant said so, and fucking blah, 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 and they can recite it word for word, blah, blah, blah. But did they arrive at that through their own contemplation and their own reasoning and their own life experience? There's a difference, again, going back to that, eat for the tree of knowledge, eat for the tree of life, walk the tree of life. Fuck this superimposed bullshit tree of knowledge crap that we have as an education system, because that's not a walk of life. Walk of life, eating from the tree of life, is where you get wisdom and real experience. I prefer having an engagement with somebody who's offering up their reasoning processes and their contemplations, so that we can bounce them back and forwards and have a look and see if things hold up to any kind of scrutiny or whatever. Well, that's it. Again, all these, kind of spiritual and religious practices, for me, they should just remain in the realms of people and their subjective and how they identify their own internal being. And that's fine. Keep that for you, keep it private, align with those who are of the same ilk. Don't try and bring it out and superimpose it over the whole. You're just going to get problems there. It's no real, it's no reality. It's not the way nature or the natural world is, and again, I use that term loosely. This predicament, this area that we find ourselves in. Again, if we remove us and I look at the animal kingdom, where's the morality? Is there morality when a lion decides it's going to take over a new pride and murder all the cubs? Is there a court case with a jury of its peers? Evil is anger in you. Again, I have to disagree, Tony T. I don't think anger is a bad thing. I think when you harbour hatred in your heart, when you start judging others and want to impose your hatred upon them, then you could class that as an evil. But I would never say that anger is a negative thing, because it's part of the spectrum of emotion. Anger was a healer for me. It's how I dealt with trauma. It's just how I dealt with reality and what I was experiencing. I'm not the type to go away and cry in a corner. I think it's just a matter of ironing out the terms and the words that we're using, and making sweet and general statements. I think, we really have to try and focus on not doing that. You're right, Real Truth Seeker. What animals do we not have? that's to then say that all animals are automatons and they don't have a consciousness. I don't see that. I see certain animals that act impulsively. They don't have a consciousness. There's animals that can recognise their own reflection in a mirror. So they're obviously self-aware. So are they that different from us? I wish there was some way to stop your pain as well, Des. You know, I really do, mate. It's times like that you really do feel helpless, you know. But again, obviously you know that, Des, it's a result of this society, these structures that humans have allowed to happen, to be implemented, to the point of a man like you or somebody else in your position can't freely gain access to a medicine that you want to pursue. So do we blame and shout at politicians, or do we realise in our conscious minds that it's a line into these structures gone unchecked that allows these human beings to then superimpose whatever they want across the whole, so that people like yourself are then in that position? For me, it's a total absurdity. And we are in a position of helplessness in regards to that. Alright, people want to start growing it. What's going to happen? Coppers through your door, whipped after fucking court, possible jail term for what? Growing a fucking plant? Believe me, Des, if I could, mate, I would take the fucking pain off you. If there was any way that I could possibly do that, I would do it, mate. On that note, I have to thank the two gentlemen, I'm not going to say their names, who travelled from afar today to bring medicine for somebody. These two gentlemen are an example of goodness in my book. Altruistic, you know, tendencies and behaviours, gestures being made. It's no hard. So you two guys, I totally salute you. It was a pleasure meeting you. And I'm sure that the gift is going to be received well and put to good use, and hopefully I'm going to see you again very, very soon. So it's such a threat because again this structure has allowed groups of people to monopolise, to gain power that they want to perpetuate. They don't want you having sovereignty and the freedom to express and explore and be a free being. It's a threat to their industries, it's a threat to all their investments and the power that they hold. It's not just about medicinal value, it's all the other value that it has. How many other industries would collapse if we were all free to explore that avenue? Can you not see what's happening? It's the structure that we've aligned ourselves with and taken part in. At the same time as it's trying to tell you it has a transcendental moral code, it's editing all other aspects of your life. And people are talking about New World Orders, and it's fucking right in front of you. Right in front of you. Exactly, pandemonium. We've all got growing rights. They've been setting warehouses up and down the country. They're growing it and fucking exporting it. That was their whole game. Make sure we've got the monopoly on it before we start laxing the laws. Right? Because if it was really about ethics and morals and those kind of values, they would just say, oh fuck aye, it works medicinally, it's helping people, let's fucking remove the restrictions and let people grow it in abundance. But there's too many dick sniffers with investments and power that they want to perpetuate, other industries that are threatened by it. Here's concerned citizen. Well, what I'm offering up's never going to be monetised. If we're on pursuit of truth and understanding, nobody's going to monopolise on that under my watch. I mean, It's all based in fear. So I'm going to move on for the morality aspect, but to these people that want to cast judgment on their fellow man for whatever reason, their sexuality, their whatever, you've got no grounds to stand upon other than your faith in a book that's teaching you there's something that transcends you and you've got faith in it. Now accept that that's the case and that it's not the objective truth, because you've got no way of proving it. And stop chastising everybody else for no aligning with what you have faith in. Check my emails. Hold on. What does I keep doing that for? Right, I'll get to all the emails once I'm finished what I was saying here. So can you see that this, morality thing is superimposed and it's not really true to everybody, right? Because nobody knows where we are and what we're a part of here, why we're here, and what it's all about. It's just people clutching at straws and people using these ideas and concepts to corral and control the majority and bring them under an order. People rattle on about satanic, this, that and the other. That's satanic in the use of that terminology, if you like. Because it's all bullshit. Hypocritical, condescending, contradictory nonsense. But they're too pig ignorant and stupid to realise it because they've invested themselves in it. And they so want it to be true. It's just not true. There is no fucking saviour coming to help you out it. There is no easy fix cutting corners. So but you taking responsibility and realising what you're fucking contributing to. There's no point in running away making hit piece videos. The opportunity is always here for people to come in and have these discussions. It's much more healthy. Things can be understood better if people have actual dialogue with each other, rather than a battle. And the use of propaganda away making hit pieces. Not that fucking shite. That's just adding to the muck. People are committed to what they actually stand for and what they profess to believe in. At least be open to having the discussion. Don't run about in fear of us. Sees fear and insecurity and that they're not really sure of what it is they think they've got faith and belief in. Because they'll attack anybody that dares to question it. You contribute very little, Dale, just a platform to make out you're it. Well, it's my platform. I'm not trying to make out of anything, I'm just expressing me for what I'm. Nobody's forcing me to be here, fucktard. Is my platform being fucking superimposed to everybody? Is my platform being pushed to everybody? Huh? Am I lobbying like a politician to get my platform into your living room? You absolute fucking spastic. Away you go. You don't need to be here. This is the kind of hypocritical idiocy I'm talking about. There's not even an invitation for you to be here. You're here off your own free will on your own back. Now away you and represent you and what you think to be true and all that stuff. Away you go. You've got the freedom to do so. This is how blind these people are. Totally insecure. I'm obviously a threat to their wee insecurities because they feel the need. Your platform is pish because you avoid subjects like the plague. Well, I'm talking to subjects right now. I'm talking to a lot of the roots of the problems that I see. That's just where I see it. Come in. Level Fred. Why don't you come in and impart your great wisdom instead of trying to gaslight me? This is the same behaviours. Seen this before with certain characters. And by the way, these characters that went before have caused an untold amount of fraction, division. And they're just too daft to even realise it because they'll no take responsibility for their projections, their insecurities, their need to control others. Level Fred's no different. Level Fred's a prime example. That is gaslighting. It's no weak to criticism. You're gaslighting. This is an open platform where I express who I am. You're acting as if I'm the president of the world. You're retarded, son. Aye, flat enough. You love me, aye, whatever, Fred. When we love each other, we try and gaslight each other and control each other and make each other behave the way we want them to behave. That's pure love, innit? You've got a warped sense of love there, Mel, son. You're part of the problem, as far as I can see. That fucked up state of mind. I think that's a projection on your part. Because you want to be the god of all. That's the majority of people's problems. They are drunk on their own need for power. Look what happened here. There was certain people here, one in particular, that tried to gaslight me because I wouldn't behave the way they wanted me to behave. Now from that they wouldn't take responsibility for it. And they caused a fraction. And now, you know, it's siphoned off into wee different groups that have all got hatred. You know? Get people messaging me, putting comments in that are all butthurt. Get people, because I took a wrench off people, they're all butthurt and want to play the victim and blah blah blah. It's absolute insanity. Some of these people only know one language. And if that's what they want to test themselves, then fine. If that's their route, then that's fine. Level Fred B, this is a problem with you people as well. You never offer specifics. You just say that shit. Give me a specific example. Come in. Let me hear what you've got to say. If you can't offer specifics, you're no willing to come in and have that discussion, you're just going to make out all this stuff, then I'm just going to ignore you. What's happening anyway, Des? Yeah. Everybody's keen to know how you are and where you're at. Spanner set for sale. You need to send me a request if you want a link. I was going to go to some of the Globe Drivel, but since we're talking about these things and people have got something to say, pain's still an issue, mate. No, it's no good, man, but just saying we feel for you. We wish we could help you. It's a sad state of affairs. There's nothing that we can do, man. I'll just let you know that we're here and we'll offer up whatever we can to help. You know, everybody's, you know, doing whatever they can within their capacity. High level Fred, that's the guru type mantras. Truth is truth, tell, see with your eyes. See what? No specifics, just jobby. Be specific, Fred. It's the last time I'm going to address any of your crap unless you're offering me something specific that I can actually look at. That's it to the moon, Dale. You still threatening to shag men as punishment. It's a metaphor. It was an expression of, you know, I'll dominate the aim. No a literal expression, you absolute clown. I'll shag you if you give me $2 million. Put lipstick on the back of your head. Wear a wee frock. Conditions. I just get rid of the clowns. I've not got any offer. Guarantee fuck. Right, I'm going to go and check my emails here. Right, let me see. I'll need to get through these. Dill who's asking, happening Dill, it's Dill. I met you a while back and I've spoke to you here and there. Just been looking about some of the things going on in regards to censorship and all that, and thought I should drop you this link. It's from The Independent. YouTube will delete thousands of accounts after banning supremacists, conspiracy theorists and other harmful accounts, it has claimed. Users that promote ideas such as flat earth and fake cures for illnesses will be hidden. YouTube said while it has always banned hate content in general, the site has allowed some specific kinds of harmful videos. I know it's a fucking pure harm to encourage people to question things and not to, you know, lie on assumptions, and I know it's absolute fucking atrocity. Such promoting Nazi ideology or claiming 9/11 did not happen to continue being hosted in the site. Well, we knew all this. I think it's a bit, you know, preaching to the choir, all that kind of stuff. We all kind of know these things. We will begin enforcing this updated policy today, 5th of June. However, it will take time for our systems to fully ramp up and we'll be gradually expanding coverage over the next several months, its announcement read. It then goes on to say, YouTube noted that some of those accounts are useful to researchers and said it would try and work in ways of making sure they stay available. It also said the change would not affect videos that are discussing pending legislation, aimed to condemn or expose hate or provide analysis of current events. I guess we'll see how that goes though. There's more to the article. The main thing I was going to say here though is that you should maybe get another platform opened in something like BitChute or DTube or something. It looks like there's going to be another big clampdown on freedom of speech soon. And this will roll out of the 5G, in my own personal opinion. I can see things tightening up very quickly if the general people around us all don't start to react accordingly and stop it from happening. 5G is a nightmare weapon system that has far too much potential for abuse and population control, and that's on top of its associated health risks. That kind of smart system combined with total media censorship is a one-way road. I don't know if you've seen anything on the social credit systems in China. Yep, I have seen all that. I was reading and I watched a wee kind of docu a wee while back that was talking about that. You can see it starting to creep in here. You've got, I mean, I was in the Vodafone shop today. I managed to get that SIM card sorted out, and that's a cashless shop. So you can see that it's a tippy toe into these kind of avenues. I'd like to get back to it though. Hope you're doing well. Do really appreciate what you're doing on this platform. Peace out. Right, cheers for the link, Dill, who's asking. As I say, I'm aware of these things. But again, it's, you know, people are already contributing to this structure, this society. They've given their power and their authority away. They've allowed it to get this far. We can discuss, obviously. I'm looking at maybe the possibility of these, whatever it was, DTube or BitChute, whatever as well. So I'll be having a look at that. That's a comment on a video. Jacob Perucello. Hi Dale, I know that looking up at the lights in the sky don't explain what we are standing on. Still intrigued, I purchased a telescope. It has a German equatorial mount that has to be polar aligned, meaning the mount is fixated toward the North Star at all times. After it's aligned, you simply move ascensions knobs and the telescope will arc in a pattern of the stars, the moon and the sun. How do we really see thousands of light years when you can use math to scale to any size and distance? Stars have some patterns circling around the North Star for billions of years while spinning. Curious if you believe in a higher power and a creator. I believe that, I don't believe, I deduce through, reasoning that this would have come into being through a will, through an intent, with design to it. So whatever that is, whatever that prime mover, the unmoved mover is, I don't know. I don't know what it is, what its intent is. Don't know any of that. It's all pissing in the wind. Telescopes and all these things, you can get into a planetarium and it's a dome and you can see it. It's all based on the perception, the perspective of a human. It's based on the eye and how we see things and how things rise from the floor and things fall in the sky, apparently to our eyes, because we see in a curve. There's an outward curve to the eyeball. Then you look at a sextant and that's what it's talking about. It's the degrees of arc of how things fall when you move further away from them. It's based on how we see. That's it. The majority of these things are all calibrated to the level. They have to be calibrated to the level, not the mathematical definition for the heliocentric globe push, to the level, meaning the level, the non-deviation in altitude from point A to point B. That's the level. So, I'm as intrigued as all these things up there as well, mate, to be honest with you, but Dill again, I seen you were talking about evolution as well, or devolution I should say. Really interesting, thought-provoking concept, man. A master copy devolving us being the outcome. Well, that would make more sense. I always said that to people who were a proponent of evolution. Well, these early life forms in your narrative and your story must have contained all the information, all the potential for the complexity of life that we see right now. But they've kind of flipped that, that it was a retarded, simple wee thing that mutated and through mutation gained new information and new complexity, which is totally contrary again to what we actually experience in reality. So starting from a master copy, like the biblical type teachings of Adam and Eve and all that stuffs, not that I'm saying that I align with any of that full story, but I see nuggets of profound reasoning in there. That if people remove the literal interpretations and start playing with it a wee bit, you can see some things that hold up or align. So I mean, something like that could well be a possibility. Well, we're descendants of something more complex, and we're devolving into less entropy. These types of things. I thought you might be interested in this concept when I heard you saying that it's obviously theory-like. None of us were here 136,000 years ago, and the article was pretty much just mainstream bollocks. But this concept got me thinking, with it being somewhat mainstream, that an animal which has gone extinct can evolve back into existence. This bird went extinct 136,000 years ago and just evolved back into existence. Also, a side note on this email, I would be quite interested to hear your views and ideas on what you think sleep and the need for it actually is. I don't fucking know. I don't know. See people saying, it's so the brain gets a rest and the blah blah blah. Well, the brain's part of the machine, the mechanism, is it no? Is that not getting its sustenance from, the what you ingest, what you take in? That's what's getting its nutrients, its proteins, its repairing compounds, all that stuff. But again, it's like the entity within, we experience, the consciousness experiences what we call tiredness, the need to sleep. So it's, it's for me, the materialist, the reductionist type philosophies, there seems to be a problem there with that, because if I'm just a robot, I'm just a machine. And as long as a machine's getting its fuel and its oil and its blah blah blah, it doesn't need to sleep. That's another cracking question, and I ask myself the same question literally all the time, but I've not really came at it from a particular angle you did with food and that. I never thought about it like that before, but again, what you said does make sense. Why do we need food but still get tired, even though we eat it and use its energy? We are obviously not the machines the medical establishments wants us to believe we are. Exactly, as I've just said that. I've been wondering if the need for sleep was our consciousness losing the ability to maintain itself, manifested in this particular reality, or something like that. I'm really not sure at all though, still going through things in my head, and again, it's obviously just a subjective thought, but it does bear huge relevance in my eyes, like, what are my dreams? You know, some people have crazy coincidences regarding dreams and reality. It's really bizarre. It certainly is, mate. And again, I would love to have these types of conversations. Where was I? Because Bill sent me one in regards to that. Bill was sending me what he's came to understand about this human body. Let me start by saying SISO means my personal subjective interpretation or subjective opinion. Sleep. The body requires sleep for many reasons. I heard years ago if sleep deprivation goes on for more than 7 days, a person can go insane. The longest recorded sleep deprivation was 11 days, not sure if the bloke survived. In his subjective opinion, I believe that there are many processes that go on in the body that require us to sleep, especially REM sleep. This allows the body to repair and perform maintenance on itself. But why the sleep still? Why the loss of consciousness? That was my point, Bill. Where's your consciousness gone? Why does that have to be switched off? Eating is directly related to this in many ways. Have you ever eaten a big meal and felt tired and wanted to take a nap? Of course. You actually should, because from what I've read in the past, the body requires 80% of the body's energy to break down food and eliminate waste. In this same subject, from what I have learned, somewhere around 80 to 90% of solid food goes out the back door. What the small intestine does is absorb any nutrients it can and uses those as it needs throughout the body. Also, I want to say that hot meals cause the body to go into a state called digestive leukocytosis, which produces an abundance of white blood cells. The body considers the hot food a harmful infection, trauma, or toxin, and does its best to eliminate it as soon as possible. You can test this yourself by having a raw meal for breakfast or lunch, and then a hot meal for lunch or dinner. If you listen to your body as much as I have learned to do, you can eat a meal and monitor your body's reactions. Make note of how you feel, what goes on as far as energy, blood pressure and heart rate, and how you feel in general after eating an uncooked versus a cooked meal. Why do we sweat in regard to that? To why we sweat, what actually goes on there, the entire process I have never really looked into that deep. But your suggestion that we are releasing gases through the skin is quite fathomable. What I have learned is that the skin has sweat glands that open and close. They release water with tiny amounts of other chemicals, but it also works in reverse. Apparently you can absorb it, you know. So urea, sugar and some heavy metals. Sweating also supposedly keeps the pore clean and promotes healthy skin, the largest organ of the body. I've been looking into the male body and its processes since I was in my mid-30s, always looking to promote better health as I age, especially after I turn 50. You may ask, why the male body? Well, I am a man after all, at least last time I checked and had a wank. Unless I am just a tranny in disguise. Some will probably say you are, mate. Well, I mean, I get what you're saying with all that, Bill, but the question's still there. What is sleep? What's happening to your consciousness? What's that about? Paul McAllister, philosophical debate about Big Bangs and other theories, dances with zombies. Right, I don't know what that's about. Please help spread this video. AV10, GCMAF, Big Pharma and the persecution of David Noakes and Lynn Thayer. Alrighty, it's good to see you're still keeping up the great work of helping humanity find the truth. If you can, please share this video with as many people as possible. They've been demonised by the British and French government because they have an effective treatment for cancer. They're being dragged through the legal system as criminals when no crime in law exists. They should get the Nobel Peace Prize. They are on the brink of being extradited to France for further unlawful treatment. So the more people that see it might help the extradition to be stopped. We thank you for your hard work, blah blah blah. Maloney brothers, right, hold on. I'm going to share that. I've not watched it myself.
The American
but I'll share it anyway.
Library of Medicine.
With the intention of checking it out later, at a later date. So this is a link from the Maloney brothers. It's in the chat box here, people. Cheers for that, Maloney brothers. Flat Earth Data requests a hangout. Okay, let me get it set up then. Hold on. Sent. Sean Dixon, I'll get to you next, mate. You were next on the list there. So it's Joe. Hi there, I'm watching you video now and I would like you please to forward this link to, is it Des, the man with cancer? I know that he is probably getting advice from lots of people, but I use the vitamin featured in this video. I feel that it would be beneficial to him. Right, okay, let me just get that up. Fuck's sake. Somebody else wants a video shared here, so it's in the chat box for people to check it out. Somebody else wants a video shared here.
Hey, Del.
How's it going, mate? Give me 2 seconds here. How's it going, mate?
Good, man. I just wanted to wish you well and wish you good health, man. And you know, I appreciate all the information when it comes to ownership of oneself and one's thoughts, and how you continuously promote, you know, looking for truth within individual, you know, I guess individual processes, rather as opposed to following a herd mentality. But I do have to ask, if we're under a rule, which you know, there has to be some form of rule. We have to abide by some form of rule.
No,
and I believe.
Whoa. Obviously, I want to have a discussion with you. So I just want to stop when you're making these statements. So you're making an affirmed truth statement there. We have to be under some sort of rule. Why?
Well, do you believe that innately we do have a consciousness between right and wrong? We innately know right and wrong. Like it's ingrained in our it's ingrained somehow. It's been imprinted into our consciousness.
It's within me. It's within me. I can identify it within myself, but I can't make that statement for the majority and generalize.
I'll give you a scenario. Okay. There was a study done on you know, distant tribes. Mm-hmm. They had no religion, they had no government control, but they had a reward and punish system put in place. They also had a form of ethics and a form of morality within the tribe. This was innately driven by you know, obviously a chain of command. There was always some type of rule in place. Now science has tried to
hang on. We're having a discussion. These different tribes, okay, they're all different tribes. So you've got one tribe that will practice scalping another tribe, and that's their trophies. And they think that's wonderful, and they want to get as many scalps as they possibly can so that they can beat their brother who has 5 scalps for the year. They want to have 10.
I get your example, and I get it. What I'm trying to imply is that there's an innate inheritance that we get between right and wrong. Now, is that always transferable between tribes equally? No, I'm not saying that.
Well, that's the point I was making. That's the point I was making. So each tribe has its practice, its cultural, its codes, blah, 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 whatever you're born into. That's the point I was making.
What I'm saying is that there is some sort of innate subconscious in there that decides this for us. And then we portray it, or we live it, so to speak. So one tribe says, well, this is right. I feel this is right. This is how we participate in war, and this is our trophy for war. But that's not what I'm talking about, because usually scalping is war-based. I'm talking about community and order. In other words, you have a hierarchy in place. Now that hierarchy dishes out orders. Somebody gets the food, somebody gets the water, somebody makes the cloth, somebody builds the houses.
But is it the hierarchy, or is it a formulated understanding of necessity that no one person within that particular tribe is the overseer of?
What I'm saying, sir, is that it's innate, we're designed to already have it, is what I'm saying. How we execute it,
but I know what you're saying, but if we work as a community, that community, you identify certain attributes and traits that a particular individual has that can fulfill a certain role. But what I'm asking you, is that got to be overseen by one head or a committee of heads who make the decisions?
Well, that's based on tribe, because some tribes there is one head, and some tribes there's a committee. So this is all relative to the tribe itself, right? Now how that's determined, I'm not, obviously I can only speculate. But what I'm trying to assert in my conversation here is that we have already ingrained inherently a discernment between right and wrong, right?
And my subjectivity, what I determine as right and wrong. That's right.
What I'm saying to you, sir, is I have a larger point in matter, because I noticed that a lot of your panel are, I'm not for religious organizations, but I'm for the inherent subconscious philosophy between right and wrong. And my research says the philosophy of Jesus Christ is that inherent philosophy in the subconscious on how to treat our women, how to treat our children, how to treat our adversaries, how to treat our friends, how to treat our family.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to address to your audience, is that they're forgetting the philosophy of Christ is greater than the corporation religions.
Well, that's the hypocrisy that I was pointing at. It's under this rule of thumb, this guise, of these teachings and codes, but that's not what's carried out by these very same people who are imposing that structure and that system. They don't follow that code. That's the point I was making.
What I equated to, Del, is man's perversion of everything, man's corruption of everything. And now this is the part of the subconscious that is driven by greed, hate, malice, suffering, pain.
But the overlying structure is what facilitates and allows that to happen. So in regards to like your tribes, it's an isolated small pocket that's manageable, and there's enough people within there to out the corruption. But what's happened to us is we've accumulated those smaller tribes or clans are now disbanded, and we're now under one mass, which has been regulated and ruled over by committees and groups of elite people who are perpetuating their positions and looking after each other and blah blah blah. So.
Well, I noticed that the perversion of man is prevalent in all corporations and governments as of now. And the reason I believe that is because they have lost the philosophy of Christ.
Yeah. Well, have they lost the philosophy of Christ, or is it because of the scale and size of the tribe that we call a society that's allowed that to happen? Because in a smaller pocket, isolated, you can see it happening, you can eradicate it quicker.
Well, what I do see is I see the eradication of the philosophy of Christ through imagination and through the degradation of the human soul. What I also see is the manipulation of genuineness of human nature, right? The idea that you want your neighbor to be good, because if your neighbor good is you're good. You want to eat good food, because if you eat good food, that means your children eat good food.
Yeah, but I get all that, of course, mate. I totally agree with you. But what if your neighbour's a transsexual?
Well, here's the thing, is that if you're going to be, life and death are two things we have to deal with. Let me ask you a question. If society wants you to be all about death, because you cannot procreate, you cannot be in an environment where two men can have a baby and two women can have a baby. So if society is promoting death, they're going to want the joined effort to bring about two men together, two women together. Now, if our community, which our community does,
but there's an underlying problem in what you're saying there and what I'm reading into. You've got this assumption that we're supposed to perpetuate this, that we're supposed to procreate, that we're supposed to continually go. Where are you getting that from? Where do you get that? Of course
we are. When's the last time you went flying in a plane and looked down at Earth? Last time I did, I noticed the Earth is vacant. The Earth is massively vacant. There is so much room that this threat of overpopulation is absurd. This threat of pollution is absurd. The Earth is massive and unpopulated. Now, if you're going to use religion to manipulate or use religion to do that, that's your own battle you're going to have to deal with. I'm looking at what I'm observing and looking at the philosophy of Christ. Now, God says to procreate nonstop. And I, for the longest time, I was convinced that having kids in this world was wrong. And I'll tell you now, I've changed my mind. And I'll tell you why I've changed my mind. Kids brought up with dignity, integrity, with mother, father mentality will bring about what we already have, which is the society that we had was built on that. Everything we have today was built on this Christian-based fundamental idea.
See, I totally get where you're coming from, but there's underlying assumptions that I still take issue with, like what this place actually is. And if I look at the actual place and everything you're talking about in an idealistic sense is great, and I'm on board with it and under idealism, right, and an idea of utopia and utopian existence. But the fact of the matter is that the reality of this place is about survival. So where would all that go? Go back to my initial scenario. I don't know if you heard it at the beginning. There's an issue of lack. There's no food. You and your children are starving, and there's a pocket of food there that some other man and his 2 children or 3 children have already grabbed, and it's theirs. And you see it, and you know you want it for your children to name. What's your choice then going to be?
I understand that. That's a very good scenario to play out.
But that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying
obviously is you have to look at the area that you're in and how first of all, if you're looking at 2 families in this scenario, how did one family become in one situation? How did one family come in the other?
It's just a thought experiment to highlight the absurdity of these things. It's to point at the underlying, reality that we're part of here, where it is about survival. It is about the stronger will survive. Whatever you can grab and get for yourself, that's what seems to progress. That's what happens in the animal kingdom. These ideas, which is
actually written in the Bible, because it does say that if you're going to work, you will have food. If you're not going to work, you will not have food. It's a pretty much fundamental a rule. Okay, so if you're insinuating that this other family is just looking at this other family and they want what this other family has,
are you separating us from the rest of nature then? Because what happens when in that scenario you've got a pack of dogs that manage to hunt down and catch a gazelle, then a lion sees that and runs there and says, "Fuck you, Dugs, I'm taking your catch."
I understand in nature the rule that rule works very well, but you're undermining the subconscious mind and discerning between what's right and wrong, and therefore you're bringing back the animal mind to justify this example. When in reality, if you were to take 2 families and one family would have more and one family would have less, Usually that family who would have more gives to the family that has less. That is actual how humans differ from animals.
Yeah, but that's not what humans are behaving like right now.
No, I agree with you, because there's more godless people than ever before.
So what allowed that to happen was what I was pointing at. It's a structure.
Community. I'll give you an example. And it was Martin Luther King. He wrote a letter. He had I can't remember where I came across this article, but his campaign organizer was a homosexual, and he was afraid of coming out of the closet. And so Martin Luther King wrote him a letter suggesting, sir, what you're suffering from is your community. Your community has encouraged you to live this way. You're actually not this way. You've been encouraged to live this way.
Sorry, he's been encouraged to be homosexual. Is that what you're saying?
So he's encouraged by community to live, not control himself, not have any self-control, not understand his feelings and understand. They're pure emotions of lust and sexual desire, as far as I'm concerned. Is what drove this community to do what they're doing. And over a period of time, it becomes more and more acceptable.
Well, that's
becomes more and more ready on television. And what it's doing is fueling hormones. It's not fueling critical thinking. I'll give you an example.
I've read
two men having sex will not procreate.
No.
So for survival necessary, to survive, period, you need to procreate.
So again, I'm going to ask the questions, though. I'm going to ask the questions. This underlying assumption of survival, what is that about? What's the end game for that?
The end game for survival is to procreate and to fill this earth, is what it's for.
What purpose?
Children bring the most joy.
I know that, mate, but I'm asking you, I'm asking you your reasoning. What is the purpose of that?
Okay, rephrase it. What is the purpose of what again? I'm sorry.
To fill the earth, to procreate, blah blah blah. Again, I'm going to take it that you've got a faith that you go by a particular doctrine of our existence, right? That's fair enough. That's up to you. But what I'm questioning then is, where are these underlying assumptions? Where are you getting that faith? That's what we're supposed to, other than just your faith. You need to understand that.
We as men are driven by hormones to have sex. Right? Yeah. We're driven. It's innate in us. We literally have a hard time suppressing our sexual drive. That drive in itself produces a seed. That seed put in a woman creates life. We are subconsciously driven to procreate.
Yeah.
Just like we have subconscious minds to know the difference between right and wrong, it's inherent in us. Okay?
But some people don't. You keep skirting over that though. But some people don't have that same thing that me and you have.
Well, I'm not saying that everybody does. Now,
so there's an issue there, because if what you're saying was an objective thing, there's a difference though, because some people don't. They're no wired.
Yeah, but you're appealing to the minority now, and I'm not appealing to the minority. I don't care about the minority. It
doesn't matter about appealing to a minority. It's an observational fact.
The minority is the gay. The minority is the homosexual. The minority is the transgender. The minority is the weirdo. That's a fact. The reality is the majority is the mom and dad, the family. That's what this foundation of this world has been built on. It's being destroyed and slowly manipulated to choose death, to reduce population. Okay? This is what is evident in television. This is what's evident in the media. This is evident in music. It's totally destroying that structure. And if you look at why it's destroying that structure, it's because they're removing God from every facet of understanding, compassionate thinking, from intellectual understanding, even historical research.
Well, I'm in agreement with you. If anybody's paid any attention to me before, the psychological foundations are totally different. You've got a meaningless Big Bang chance happening with no rhyme or reason and no intent behind it, which for me can breed a nihilistic, materialistic type philosophy and mentality in people. So I totally agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with that in any way, shape or form.
I ask anybody on this panel for one moment of thought, and this is what I ask of you, Del, as well, because it almost brings me to sweat when I think about it. If I am lucky to die on my deathbed, if I am lucky to stay there and have a moment's grace to say goodbye to the people I care about, you tell me, why would I think that matters if I live in a globe spinning Earth, coming
Exactly.
from a monkey.
Well, I've just made that point. I agree with you.
Exactly. So it does matter, Del. It does matter to procreate. It does matter to bring
No,
life.
no. That's where I start to disagree. Because this is where you think you have the authority, that you know the bigger picture, the objective bigger picture of our existence, what it means, what that prime mover actually wants, what its intentions were. You're asserting that, but you don't have any grounds for that other than a religious doctrine.
No, I don't, because I know inside of us, we're driven to procreate. We are the majority. We desire women. We desire to put our seed in women. This is an innate, subconscious, driven fact.
But consciously, I didn't desire to procreate. Consciously, I desire to experience the pleasure of sex.
Sure, because once you have it, you know what it's like. But initially,
listen,
you don't know what it's like, but you're driven to do it anyway.
Aye, but no with the intent of creating children.
Once again, that's now community. Now they give you a condom. They give you birth control. They say, hey, you can enjoy sex now without the threat of procreation, which is choosing death again.
So what you're saying then is that it's kind of deterministic. You're now negating the fact that we would have free will.
I'm saying that you're
negating free will by making that statement.
I'm not negating free will. Free will allows you to sleep with whatever you want. Free will allows you to procreate with whomever you want to a certain degree. Of course, you can't just go procreate with whatever you want.
You're stating that
but you do have free will and whether or not you can have children.
But you're stating we're driven by hormones on a subconscious level and blah, blah, blah. That's deterministic. That means that's happening without my volition then.
But that's biological. That's programmed in every species across Earth, right?
So there's a difference. That's what I'm saying to you. There's a difference. And I separate the two because I have this conscious aspect to myself, this volition, and I have this mechanical machine that has its own processes. Now, at a time in my life, I would have been driven, you know, as a whatever that terminology is that people use, an NPC or whatever, an automaton, where I wasn't using my volition. That biological machine was driving everything. And I never really had a say in it because I wasn't wise enough. I never had the wisdom.
Sure.
But now I'm at a point where I question through my intellectually, I'm asking the questions. Well, now I consciously understand a bit more about the world, and I'm asking the questions of what have I contributed to here? I have procreated, but I'm still asking the questions. What have
a beautiful child, Del.
Listen. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Listen, let me finish. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying about my children and how I have affection for them and I love them dearly. But the question still remains, what have I involved them in? What am I actually contributing to here? Now, you're going to say you have the objective answer to that, where I disagree. I don't think you have the objective answer. I'm still asking the question because I don't know what this place is. I don't know who created it, what intent they had, what I'm playing a part in here, whether it's a good thing to have brought children here. I don't know any of these things, but you're asserting that it is a good thing. And that's fine, Del, because you go by a particular... Listen,
I have kids, we both have kids.
Yeah.
When I look at my child, and my child has all the same experiences I did as a child, but I get to relive them, that is one amazing experience that I have no way to equate why I'm experiencing it, but I am grateful that I do. Just like I am grateful for the opportunity that if I am on my deathbed, I can say goodbye to my loved ones. Now, why is that, Del? Why would I want that opportunity?
Hang on, because what you're saying that is fine in certain scenarios, but there's certain things I don't want my kids to be subjected to and have to live through. I don't think that's wonderful. I think it's horrific, and that's what I question.
So let me ask you a question. If you had a choice between a sudden death and a deathbed, what would you choose, sir?
Don't know.
Exactly. So for me, I ponder the same very question, and both are damaging. Now, why I consider them damaging, I also don't know. All I know is I don't have the choice, actually. That is.
But let's bring this a wee bit back to kind of full circle or back to the beginning, because you know a lot of the problems that I see or I question is that people view life with an idea that there has to be some sort of transcendence, something that transcends this experience, that gives meaning to it, that this experience transcends your life when you die, that it's somehow transcending and having an impact or has a relevance to some other metaphysical realm. Now, again, you know, I accept that people have faith and they have a need for faith through fear, anxiety, stress, trauma, whatever, but I disagree. I look at life differently. I look at it as maybe something different to you. I say, well, it's just a technology. Whatever we're doing, we're just experiencing the technology. There is nothing that transcends it. You just, like when I go to the fairground or I have a shot of a virtual reality machine, I don't go into that experience and think that my experience is going to transcend the actual experience. But religions and these kind of doctrines are trying to give us a transcendental meaning. And I'm asking the questions, where do you get the grounds for that?
Creating life, the ability to create life. It's a gift and it's a blessing.
Well,
and it's something I can't understand why I've been given the gift to do.
But you don't understand it, but you're going to say, but listen, you're saying it, you don't understand it, but you're going to assert that it's a good thing, and that's what I'm questioning.
Absolutely, I'll assert it's a good thing, because if you're in like, don't get me wrong, because I am in North America, I have a different experience than somebody in Syria.
Yeah.
I have a different experience than somebody in a Middle East war-torn country.
Yeah.
So for me, I recognize it as a good thing and a blessing because I'm not in that situation.
So it's relative to your situation, your circumstances then. So it's relative.
I'm super grateful though. I'm super grateful to
I get that. I get that. But I understand what you're saying. It's relative to your circumstances. You can't generalise that across the full spectrum, across the full board. And again, you know, I understand and I accept people's requirement to have something that transcends this experience. But I'm asking the question and making the statement that doesn't give you the authority, because you have that particular way or that thought, that everybody else must adhere to that. Surely you must accept that.
I'm not asking or implying or suggesting anybody needs to feel that. What I'm hoping people do is having to question themselves at the point when they're going to die, whether they want to have a quick death or they want to have a deathbed where they get to say goodbye to people. And if they choose one or the other, understanding why they're choosing it and where that derivative, that information comes from to make you that decision. For me, because I see the joy in children, I see the laughter and humility and humbleness, but also
so what about children that have a quick death in an accident?
I'm sorry?
What about children that die quickly, suddenly in accidents?
Well, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a young fella here die in Chilliwack, BC, by trying to save somebody else's life. He drowned. He wasn't a good swimmer. He saved the other person's life, but he ended up dying. Mm-hmm. So that also, in a way, is a beautiful thing, because it's somebody putting themselves in front of somebody else. And that's only when somebody chooses life can they do that.
So that's through fear of death. That's based in fear. That's based in fear. Again, brings me back to the point. Why are people fearing death?
Well, because life is precious, Del.
To who? Where do you get? You keep making, but you keep making these truth. Listen, I don't want to argue, but you keep making these truth statements, and I'm questioning your reasoning, the grounds for where you get these statements of objective truth.
I value life, Del.
But that's you. That's from your circumstance and your subjective experience, which is fine.
Del, I don't want to ask you, do you value life?
Depends what you mean.
Do you value your life, Del?
Do I value my life? I don't know what this life is to hold value to it.
Okay, hold on. Just answer me. Do you value your life right now? Do you value getting up, having a tea, seeing your little boy, kissing your wife, watching the sunset? Do you value the air you breathe?
Let me pose a question to you. There's a tribe somewhere out in the middle of the fucking jungle. They've never experienced gold. They don't know what it is, and you go and take them a bit of gold and say to them, "Do you value this?" What are they going to say to you? They don't know what it is, so how can they place value upon it when they don't know what it is?
I'm not asking a tribe, Del. I'm asking you,
I'm using the analogy to answer your question. I'm using the analogy to answer your question. You're not accepting it.
I'm not looking for an analogy. I'm looking for your direct response.
I'm giving you a direct response. I'm having to use the analogy to make the point. I don't know what life is, so how can I place value upon it?
So, sir, just to clarify, you do not value getting up in the morning, having your tea, your smoke, seeing your little boy, kissing your wife.
There's aspects that I enjoy, that I partake in, but in the encompassing, bigger picture. You don't.
Are you
you
able
need
to do this anywhere else that you know of?
You need
sir?
to break this down so that we understand what we're actually saying. You're talking about aspects. I can wake up in the morning, I'm content, I'm happy to be me, right? There's aspects that I can partake in that I'll take joy out in. But what I'm asking the question about is the encompassing bigger picture. You're asking me, do I value, are you asking me, do I value the wee experiences within this bigger picture? Then there's parts that I do value, of course. But the bigger picture, if you're asking me, do I place value in it? I don't know what the bigger picture is to give you an answer of affirmative that I value it or I disvalue it, because I don't know what it is.
Okay, so if you don't know what it is, what would you suggest in finding out what it is? Would you use history? Would you use science? Would you gather all the highest intellects together and to get their opinion on it? What would you do? Because if you're going to sit in a plateau and wonder, it means you're not discovering life. It means you're not searching for life, and you're just wandering.
No,
now, if you choose to wander, that's fine.
I'm taking my life.
But I'm here to tell you, Del. There are people that
you're just here to proselytize. You're not here to have a discussion with me. Let me respond to you. Right. So clarify the point that you just tried to make to me there, so that I'm clear on it. You're telling me that I'm no searching for life, I'm no searching for answers. Here's the thing, mate. You're part of the effect, right? Whatever you think the prime mover is out with this construct. It's no part of the effects. It is the prime mover. So how the fuck are you ever going to get a gauge on that when you are the effect?
Because when I look at history and I see it repeating, and I see nobody learning from the lessons of history repeating, it's an indicator to me that we're headed towards that direction that we've already been down before, which means complete destruction, right? This is repeated history. I'm not conjuring this up. I'm not manifesting it up.
What history? Written history? History that you got from books? Is this history your experience, or is it stories and narratives that you're taking to be true and factual?
Well, you're right. My history does come from books and other scholars and information, but to discredit that, Del, it would be naive on your part to completely 100% discredit it.
I don't discredit it, but I don't place any relevance or value in it, because I didn't live then. I live now. And I'm asking the questions now. And I'm trying to reason with you as another human being, and you're wandering off away into supposed histories and blah, blah, blah. Now I've answered concisely to your points. I don't know what this life is. You don't know what it is, but you're following a particular doctrine. You're putting faith in a narrative and a story that you think may be true. But listen, you're part of the effect. You're no part of the cause. You're not the cause. You're not in touch with the cause. You don't have an intimacy with the cause. You're not experiencing out with the effects of this reality. So to make affirmed truth statements about what this reality is, and to ask me, do I value it? I can't give you a value because I don't know what it is. Neither do you.
You're right. You do have to have faith in what you have to be true. And I agree with that. Now, let me ask you, Del, if I was to pray for you because I care about you as a human, and I don't want my fellow intellects to be sick or well, how would you feel if I was to pray for you in the name of Jesus Christ that you, sir, would heal or get better or live longer and less pain? Would that be okay, sir?
Well, I think it's a nice trait, that as I was saying to Des, I don't wish anybody any harm, and I wish there was a way that I could alleviate the pain that he's suffering and experiencing. So I think it's a warm and kind and nice gesture.
Well, no, Del, it's actually that you are going out and spending a lot of your time and getting people to question and getting people to ask, getting people to question things and involving your life blood and what's left of it to do this. So I want to say thank you to you, but also remind you, Del, that the philosophy of Christ is way more powerful than any religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I can understand about the philosophy of Christ or whatever is to walk your own path, to be you, don't cast judgment, all that stuff. Be rational, be logical, be discerning. Be an individual. Don't be swayed by imposed superficial knowledge and narratives and stories. To walk a life of true experience and be true to your essence and what you actually are. And that's what I try and pursue. Be intellectually honest with myself first and foremost. Don't kid myself on. Don't bullshit myself. And that's it.
I appreciate that. Now let me ask you a question. Do you, from your personal experience, believe that this experience you have now is the end all and be all of everything?
I hope no.
I don't think it is, Del.
I don't think it is either. But
honestly, from my research, this is just the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Well, it may well be. Again, it may well be, mate. You know, I don't have a closed mind to aspects of the possibility of a metaphysical existence. I think a metaphysical, you know, experience is there. Whether or not I'm going to consciously experience that, I don't know. I hope I do. I hope that I progress and I learn more about what I've been part of and where I actually was and what the whole shebang was about. Maybe that will be the case. Maybe it's not going to be the case. Maybe it's going to be a case of taking the virtual reality helmet off and going, oh fuck, that was a wonderful thrill ride. What's next? I mean, I don't know, mate. You know, but I'm not going to cut, you know, I don't cut off anything. I just question people's assertive claims and truth statements about things that we don't know about. That's it. It's not that I'm negating your particular philosophy or your religious faith or any of that. You're entitled to that. I just ask questions. That's it.
I agree. Why I've chosen to go the path I've chosen is because the nations in the world hate the name Jesus Christ. They loathe it, they spit on it, and they hate it. And when anybody takes the time of their day, ignores religious organizations, and just look at the philosophy of Christ's teachings, you'll start to realize that it's good for us and that everything that negates it is not. But you'll only get there once you block out all the rest of the noise and understand that they're purposely attacking it. Now you tell me why they're attacking it if the message and the meaning is healthy, good, and genuine.
It's the same as why they attack any sovereignty to an individual and proper discernment to an individual, because it then limits the opportunity for these people to have a monopoly over others and to perpetuate their lifestyles or whatever it is they're partaking in. So people have got different incentives for different behaviours. But to say that it's an attack on this objective, you know, God or creator and what it actually wants and its creation and blah, 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 I start to take issue with that. But I see what you're saying in certain aspects, of course. But I can understand the selfish needs of these people and what it is they're actually trying to perpetuate and maintain that's driving them to display these behaviours. I wouldn't say it's an active agenda from a satanic devil type character that wants that to happen. That's a religious narrative and story. An interpretation of what, an interpretation.
That's also another misconception with this devil evil looking thing. If you look at history, in fact, it's not an ugly evil thing. It's the most beautiful thing. That's the misconception. Everybody's going around saying that this evil darkness thing, creature with horns and tails, it's actually not at all the case. It's the most beautiful flower in the field that can poison you.
I've heard the arguments, you know, people talk about good and evil, and even, you know, when people say evil, then that's still implying that there's some sort of transcendental, you know, moral compass. In order to know evil, there must be good. You know, if there's evil, there has to be good that somehow transcends. I've heard these postulations, these philosophical arguments.
I'm just saying there's a lot of misconception in the majority of the community that don't understand either the philosophy of Christ, understand the representation of evil and how it's portrayed in reality. It's not portrayed as a dark, evil, sinister thing. It's portrayed as a vaccine that's supposed to be good for you. It's portrayed as a particular food that's supposed to be good for you, but it has a cyanide in it or something. You get my point.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying about groups of people who are trying to capitalise on the gullibility and the vulnerability of ignorant people, willfully ignorant people. And that's what happens. That always comes back full circle to, you know, proper discernment of the individual and the tools of discernment, so that they're not preyed upon by these concepts and these elitists who want to capitalise on the ignorant. You know, so again, it comes back to people taking responsibility for themselves rather than just blaming these people that offer the product.
I get it. We've grown to be a bedwetting community where we do not take ownership, we do not take responsibility, we continue to piss the bed and complain about it.
Yeah.
I understand that completely, entirely.
Yeah.
What I wanted to call to you today, Del, is just to say thank you. I hope you do take some time out to get a little closer to the philosophy of Christ. I'll say a few prayers for you, and anybody in this chat room should care about Del. He takes a lot of time out of his day to do what he does, regardless if he's religious, regardless if he believes in Christ or not. The whole point is that he's taken his time out to help everybody out.
In your book or anybody else's book, because I don't follow a particular doctrine or religion, in your book and in your judgment, does that make me bad or evil? Or do you
No,
view
sir.
me as...
What makes you bad and evil is the choices you do in your life.
Right.
Anybody can be forgiven at any time if they ask for it and they believe. That's the promise of Christ. That's not my words. That's the words that he left on this earth for people to discern for themselves. You have every right to run through your life being aimlessly on a plateau, but I'm afraid of my deathbed, Del, and I'm praying that I have the opportunity.
So you think
to
I'm aimlessly on a plateau? That's like a derogatory, insult.
Let me rephrase that. I'm not trying to be derogatory towards you. I'm just saying that most people who are uncertain, cannot make commitments to certain things, end up being a plateau, and I am guilty of that very thing. The only reason I've changed recently is because I've looked at the nations. I looked at what's going on social media. I looked what's going on in politics.
But listen, what you're saying there, would your teachings of your Jesus or whatever encourage people to adopt things on blind faith? Because people adopting trust and blind faith has led us to this very point where we have groups of people capitalising on that ignorance. It's a dangerous game to be playing. So I maintain a sense of discernment and scepticism and questioning, which surely must be healthy. Surely a God or your Jesus Christ would be an advocate for that. Because if you're no, then you're going to be led down the garden path into willful ignorance or ignorance. And that's going to be played upon by predatory nature people.
I agree. And that's why I tell people to avoid corporations that are religious. The major corporations, they are the exploiter of the word, the manipulator of the word, and they do not teach the philosophy of Christ. You show me one religion in modern times that teaches philosophy of Christ. There's none. There's nothing. The philosophy of prosperity is what all these churches teach now.
Yep. Yeah,
it's not rooted in it. So if you are smart or wanting to
listen, what do you hear me advocating for? You hear me advocating for people to be altruistic, to help each other, to support each other, not to be casting judgment, not to bully each other, to recognise the triggers of psychological and emotional trauma. I'm continually pointing towards these things. Do you not see that?
I do, and I agree with a majority of what you say, for sure, absolutely, because I know where we're at in society. But once again, my observation tells me that the nations hate the name Jesus Christ, so that draws me to go, why? Why was a man that was supposed to be sinless, with a philosophy of good-naturedness to treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated, and love God with all your heart and soul, and those are the two basic commandments that people froth and gnat at the teeth about. And I look at the board here, there's not one individual on this board that I can see that has any cognitive thought that's regarding to what I'm saying. All it is hatred, stupidity, ad hominems. If anybody on this board is a truth seeker, you have to ask your question. Why does a world hate such simple, honest thoughts?
I play with idealistic thoughts like that, mate, and that's the problem that I'm asking the questions about, because those idealistic traits and the way I see that I would like the world to be, just as you're describing, is just not the experience of this world.
Well, this is all we know, Dale. This is the only world that we're in. So this is the judgment I have to make. But again, it's I can't presuppose any other existence.
But you're making true statements about this world. So you're talking about this world like a finite area. You know what it is. You know where it is. There's nothing else beyond it. You know where it came from. There's a lot of truth in some of the truth statements in these things that you're saying that I have questions about, and that's it. That's what I'm saying. I totally agree with you on the idealistic application of some of these principles and traits of human beings and how I would like it to be. But what I would like it to be and who I am internally is a reflection of me. But the world that I'm existing in shows me that there's different things going on here. And all I'm doing is asking questions about that. So appreciate.
No, I get it. Del, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you taking me on.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's somebody else that'd love to join the board.
Yeah.
Maybe we can continue this on at a later date. I have to go pick up my child.
Cool.
Del, I pray for you, brother. I pray for you to look at why the nations hate Jesus Christ and understand why they hate it. And maybe that will draw some conclusions for more people on the board. You have to realize there is an attack on the philosophy of Christ. And if you don't know what the philosophy of Christ is, it has nothing to do with religion.
But I acknowledge there's an attack on that type of philosophy. You're missing that point. I acknowledge that there is an attack on it. It's not being catered for. It's not being promoted. Discernment's not being put through the education. These critical tools of discernment and thought and rational logical thinking are being removed. I totally accept and have acknowledged time and time again that these things are happening.
Well, then tell your audience to smarten up, and if they are true truth seekers, they will come up with better answers.
I'm not here to tell anybody anything, because I'm not a prophet. I'm not here to proselytize and tell people what they should be and blah, blah, blah. I can only offer up who I am and share my contemplations and how I'm viewing things, and then open that up to discussion so that we can have discussions with each other and we can reason with each other and we can find flaws in the reasoning and the hypocrisies and the contradictions through some of our reasoning processes. I'm certainly not here as a prophet, a guru, a proselytizer. That's no my goal. It's no my incentive, and it's no my place to be doing that. I do not assume that authority. That's pompous and dangerous as far as I'm concerned. I don't consider myself an authority over anybody.
You are in a position of authority now. You are.
But there's a responsibility with that authority, and I should never assume that I'm on a pedestal in a position to proselytize and tell people how it should be. That's not my method. My method's a different approach. I offer up my experiences, my contemplations, my thoughts, and let people reflect on that. They can make their own mind up from that. So it just depends what you mean by tell your audience. I'm offering my audience my contemplations and my thoughts. It's up to them what they make of that. I'm not going to tell them what to think. So I appreciate you coming on, mate. We will have this discussion further at some later date.
Sounds good, sir. You take care of yourself.
Cheers, my man. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right, what's happening, people? Right, let me see here. Have a wee look. Sean Dixon, you've been asking for a link, so let me just get that set up quick now. I'll come to the chat box. See what people's thoughts are on the interaction there. Right, what we're saying to you people, how we all doing? Celtic 66, Sheeps and Neeps. One man, he's Detector Nicholas, Walter Williams, Uppercut. She get helicopters. Oops. Dardania. I know. It's I'm good, Neil Williams. As I say, for me, a lot of the kind of discussions are healthy because they highlight some aspects, I think things that people assume and take for granted, and some lines that people offer up which contain, you know, underlying assumptions and statements of fact and truth that, for me, you know, I'm always wanting to question where people get that and that assumed authority. So I appreciate, you know, Flat Earth Data, I think it was, coming in for that interaction because it's beneficial. To me, anyway. Oh, Juan Carlos. you doing, Martin Healy? Exactly, that's what I think beyond belief. Insulting the followers. An insult there as well. Alright, nice one, uppercut. You're kneeling to that effigy, try and wish some Ferraris and new motorbikes in my direction, would you? I am the boss, I tell ye. You are here to listen to my preachings. This is a sermon. Yep, certainly is uppercut. Love needs no religion, that's it. So hang on now, I'm waiting on Sean Dixon here again. Just check the other emails quick. Tom Yamaha, Dell, BitTube is okay for now, maybe you should try many on it now. Alright, just give it a wee bash, Tom Yamaha, hope you're well, mate. Alright, Sean Dixon's telling me I had to go. Evan Kim, hi there, wondering if I may chat for a bit. Been going back to philosophy, particularly to the Greek philosophers Socrates and Plato, where for objective truths the flat earth was flat with a dome-like structure. Then Aristotle came and started looking at things subjectively, that the earth was a sphere with the earth spinning. He was for rhetoric as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Well, it is. Again, that's where the separation of objective and subjective has to come in. People say, oh, there is no objectivity in regards to subjective philosophies. There is none. But objectivity, when I use that word, I'm talking about the world that exists of material and physical interactions where there's consequence. There is, action, reaction, cause and causality that we are subjected to. So I think a lot of these terms are mixed up when people are using them, to be perfectly honest with you. Used for rhetoric as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, since rhetoric could persuade people to look at what is truth. Well, that's it. I use that. I use it, with what was termed the Socratic type method of asking and postulating questions that may bring people to certain realizations. So, rhetoric isn't necessarily about looking for truth, but to persuade those listening to look at things the way the speaker sees the world. Exactly. I've pointed at that so many times. That's what debates are about. That's why I says to you about your thing about going on to the debate. I was trying to highlight that point, that this is not up for debate. The world does not care about people's opinions, beliefs, philosophies, spiritual teachings, any of that stuff. I'm talking about the purely mechanical realm that we all exist in, that we are subject to, that has definite physicality and physical laws that you can't break, Hitting you with a fucking 30,000 ton train at 100 mile an hour is going to turn you into mince, regardless of how intellectually philosophical people think they are. That's the difference that I'm talking about. But right, let me just set up a wee quick one here. I've not even got to the Globe Drivel. You're already in a video call, for fuck's sake. What am I? Alright. Who are you talking about, Flat Enough?
Hi, Dale. How's it going?
How's it going, mate?
Good. How about you?
I'm alright.
So a lot of what I was looking at was because of the what was that? The non sequitur show that I was on, and basically, they set their attack dog Red's rhetoric on me, and so through the whole thing, I was using the Socratic method, which I don't think they knew. I mean, they knew in hindsight, but they didn't know while I was doing it. And so basically, it was just Socratic method versus rhetoric.
Yeah.
So the videos I'm making, although I don't have as much time anymore, but basically it's breaking down Red's rhetoric. And I mean, what I'm looking for from them is wisdom, any type of truth that I can find. But it's really not about that for them. It's about persuading people who are listening to them to see things the way that they see.
It's a religious concept, that's why, mate. It's based purely in the realms of rhetorical gibberish. That's why I keep saying to them, look, as men, as human beings, there's a physical world here, an actual objective realm. So when we're talking about scientific pursuit, that has to be broken down into practicality. If you're making truth statements, supposed factual statements about my world, where's the demonstrations? Don't just keep using your language and asserting that a visible phenomena or an image on a TV screen is somehow going to justify your rhetorical garb. It's total fucking nonsensical drivel, but that's why these people set it up as a debate, because they understand that it's a concept and that it's about swaying people to align with that concept through the use of rhetorical devices. That's what they're about. Sure, I says that to you before you went on, it's easy to see. Me and Gav went on there, I went on there just to fucking get it right up them, because I knew what they were about. I know they're not intellectually honest, they're part of a religious cult that just want to perpetuate this concept. So we went on there again and we're asking physicality questions, claims and truth statements about my reality, about pressure systems and how they can exist in a medium that's a vacuous empty space. And I get this dipshit showing me a picture of a firework for 50 minutes and then shitting on the chessboard and running about professing that it's some sort of victory. They're just morons, mate. They're not even worth your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it is good to illustrate what they're doing and how they're doing it,
yeah,
for a lot of people who don't understand it too well. And it's great to revisit a lot of the philosophy of more of the ancient times, because one of the more important things that occurred to me during my transition of not believing the globe earth model and starting to look at the earth as it presents itself, which it's more flat than it is a globe, and it's looking at things that way. And a lot of the times that we're looking through history, we look at all these philosophers and teachings, and they got the shape of the earth wrong. And then but now we're at this point.
That's why they didn't. That's why I say, literature can have a good impact at a very small level, but it can influence your discernment. As I was pointing out earlier, somebody came along and says to me, that method that you use is called the Socratic method. Now, I never arrived at the Socratic method through reading literatures and listening to, somebody telling me how to achieve that. I formulated it through a direct, realist aspect of experience, contemplation, and coming to these things off my own back. Whereas people can be influenced by no walking the walk of life through direct experience and practicality. They can be influenced by these concepts and ideas. It's a powerful tool to the unsuspecting, gullible.
Yeah, and I think that's why if people look at the apology about Socrates and how he was, he heard from one of his friends that the Oracle of Delphi told him that Socrates is the wisest man on earth. And the Oracle of Delphi didn't lie. So Socrates was saying, well, wait, how am I the wisest man on earth? I don't know anything. So he goes, well, let me try to prove the Oracle wrong. So he went to everyone, all these other philosophers, these artists, and people who are just specialists in their craft. And he'd ask, like politicians and things like that as well. And he would ask them questions to see if they were wiser than him. And except is they just kept lying and bullshitting up to a point. Instead of saying, I don't know, they just said, "Oh, I know, so I'm just going to tell you, and whether I'm right or wrong, as long as I appear like I know, I appear wiser than you." But he goes, "Well, these guys are just bullshitting me and lying to me. So, all right, these guys I don't think are wiser than me." So, in the end, he goes, "Well, maybe I am wiser than everyone because I don't lie or bullshit. I just know that I really don't know anything."
Exactly.
And so thus he goes, okay, maybe the Oracle of Delphi is speaking truth.
For us, it's the best approach and it's the honest approach. That's how you learn. If you start out with a pompous, attitude, a know-it-all, is what's been perpetuated through our education system to this day. They've superimposed that type of mentality onto people that regurgitate, and they have that, authoritative attitude that they know stuff because they went through an education system and they know fucking diddly squat. Whereas if you admit things that you don't know and you follow a practical means of exploration, and regardless of what it is, you're going to gain knowledge, you're going to gain experience, true knowledge, through a practical walk of experience and interaction with every aspect of your reality. But if you're standing still, reading books, listening to stories and narratives and filling your capacity with all these stories and then wander about calling it knowledge, you're an absolute fucking moron as far as I'm concerned, because you don't know. I looked at that, I says it the other night, the problem with Mary, one of these kind of philosophical thought experiments of, Mary being in a black and white room, she's always experienced things as black and white. She's been theoretically taught every aspect of the world, from grass, plants, biology, social interactions, blah, blah, blah. Is Mary then equipped to go? Does Mary know the experience, what it feels like to smell a flower, what it feels like to touch the grass? There's a separation of, I hark back to that wee part of the Bible teaching, the tree of knowledge, the tree of life, and that's, for me, I interpret it as that. This don't eat for the tree of knowledge means don't take information that's out with your experience because it's detrimental and useless to you, and you're going to poison the well by perpetuating and repeating that shite to your other fellow man, especially children who are impressionable. What you should be promoting is an active participation of experience, hands-on practicality through your life. That's where you get wisdom, that's where you get true knowing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And someone gave me the analogy of, or no, actually I provided the analogy of going to Alaska. I mean, all these travel advertisements are saying, this is what Alaska's like. You can do this and do this and do that.
Yeah.
That's, when you actually go to Alaska, your experience is going to be totally different. It's going to be dictated upon you on what it was like.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
no experience that they have is going to apply to everyone.
Exactly.
And so people do need to experience it themselves. And kind of going back to the previous speaker, like talking about children and life and Jesus Christ and stuff like that is as much as I don't know where to start. Let's just break down Jesus Christ, and this is where I become heretical. And this is where I always tell people I'm not a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus and his teachings.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, let's break down Jesus Christ's mythology into three parts. One, he was God or the Son of God. And two, that he sacrificed himself to prevent eternal damnation to everyone, not a particular group or a particular person, but everyone. And then third, that in his life he provided teaching to others about enlightenment. And so let's say he was one, but he didn't do any of the others. So let's say he was just God and Son of God. Is that of any importance to anyone? That he was just God and he was Son of God. He didn't teach. He didn't save anybody. We would say no, that's not important. So the importance that he was a God or not really didn't matter, did it? As far as for me, maybe others, that he's a God, that's all that matters to them. The second is that he sacrificed himself to save everyone from eternal damnation, but eternal means almost just an eternity. Say it's eternity minus 1 second. That's not eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have saved everyone from just a brief
But that
point
also breeds a responsibility, does it not? It's like a corner cutting mechanism for people. It kind of that aspect of it that he's sacrificed so that we'll no suffer or whatever. That removes responsibility to each individual, does it not?
Yeah, and and it doesn't necessarily mean a good life for eternity.
Yeah.
I mean, and that I mean, there's a lot of faults with just having that against anything else. Now, the third aspect is his teachings. His teachings, I mean, if 1 and 2 was important, that he was God or Son of God and that he sacrificed himself to save everyone from eternal damnation, that was all that it was. He could have just stayed as a carpenter, right? And he didn't have to teach at all during his whole lifetime. But he decided to teach throughout his life. And his teachings are probably the more important aspects of his life. And the thing is, Christianity right now and a lot of religions that focus on Jesus Christ and what he did was basically based off that he was the Son of God and that he sacrificed himself to prevent eternal damnation. But they neglect everything about his teachings pretty much. And that seems to be the most important part about him, is the way he lived his life and what he provided for others during his life, and not necessarily how he was born, whether he was born a human or he was born a God, or how he died, whether he sacrificed himself or if he committed suicide.
It's the walk, it's the content of the man. That's what you're pointing at. Exactly. It's the same for everything. It's, don't look at the superficial nonsense. It's the walk of people that tells you about them and whether you can learn something for that, their actual practicality, who they were, what they stood for, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. And I mean, a lot of, whether you look at things as they really happen or they use it, or you want to look at it through analogies or what do you call it? Sorry, I'm not. I need my coffee. But basically, like you can understand the person by the fruits of their work. I mean, just basically what came from their life. Was it good? Was it bad? That can be easily discerned. And also those that asked, hey, what's the seed? What does this grow into? Because I mean, all seeds almost all look alike, and they're, and he just said, plant them and see what grows, and then you'll know. And a lot of that is just kind of seeking within. It's like, well, I won't know what this is until I do it. So let me do it, and we'll see what happens.
Exactly. I mean, practicality, experience, direct experience.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so those teachings are really important, and I think people neglect that, and to just neglect the entire life of Jesus Christ and his teachings, and just focusing on the things that the religious aspect really wants you to focus on, that he's the Son of God, he'll come back, he was resurrected, he died for your sins and all that stuff. That stuff really doesn't matter. I mean, otherwise he would just done that and nothing else, and not taught at all. But these teachings, not just the ones that are in the accepted scripture, but those that are in the non-accepted scripture, Nag Hammadi and all these other types, the Book of Enoch, those also have some good lessons that you can learn from. And the wisdom that's there isn't just from Jesus. There's also others like Buddha, Muhammad, and a whole bunch of others, which people would call
but people need to know, miss the part of self-reflection through their experience first and foremost. It's all very well, I have to, go through my self-experience and reflect myself. Then I can maybe relate. I can then reach out and say, like as I say, somebody just sniped that there. Somebody just sniped the fucking thing. Evan, Kim, I can only apologise, mate. Somebody gained access there. I don't know how they managed that. Did everybody else see that happening there? Well, listen, it's getting on a bit now. Evan, Kim, I can only apologise, mate, that was cut short. You're welcome to come back, obviously Saturday or whatever. I'm just going to call it a day at that, leave it there. we can pick that back up at a later date. So did everybody else see that? You seen it, Kieran? Good. Cheers, Evan, Kim. That's alright, I got it cut off before they flashed anything up. Cheers, Pandemonium. Right, mods, as always, much appreciated, and to the guests that came on this evening. Appreciate your time and the chats. I've got to say, as I say, I've got the SIM card now. I can access that other channel, Celtic 67, and I'll set the other one up as well. I'll do that this week. I've got some interview stuffs there I need to edit, and I'm going to be back out tomorrow getting more. So I'm going to focus on that first and foremost, and then I'll sort these other channels out by the weekend. So anyway, mods, again, cheers, much appreciated. Everybody else, take it easy. See you very soon.